Hello.
Hello, my name is Nadya. I'm 15 years old.
When I work with Japan, they don't know what I do, where I go, as long as I bring them the girls.
Don't worry, Mom.
Welcome back to Negative Cutters, the movie trailer review podcast. I am your host, John Beck, and joining me today is Paul Fox. How's it going, Paul?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. We are here to talk about the trailer for Girl Model. We're going to break it down, take a look at it. If you haven't checked out the trailer yet, just click the link down in the comments or the description. Otherwise, let's dig in. Can you walk me through the trailer, Paul? What's the premise of this movie?
Well, apparently this is a documentary about models who are taken out of how would we say, third world countries or less than adequate financial circumstances.
Well, I think the location they're using is Siberia as far as the recruiting. So I don't think it's necessarily third world, but certainly impoverished. Yeah. People trying to make better of their life for their family.
The main protagonist here, I guess her name is Nadya. She is apparently 13 years old, and I guess the film sets up to follow her story as she comes from Siberia to become a model in Tokyo. Now, modeling in Western models in Asia are a pretty big thing, and you can find a lot of success there. I've seen this firsthand being here in Hong Kong. We have quite a lot of fashion shows, and a lot of Western models come over here and get work for fashion shows and things. So it's not uncommon, but apparently this film is following along with both this young model, aspiring model, and also a woman who's, I guess, now a scout who at one time was a model.
And she's like 25 or something like that. And it's like the thing that struck me the most is like every time you cut to the scout, it's like she's still rather young looking and looks incredibly tired and jaded. Like, it's amazing the difference between this doe-eyed young girl and here's her 10 years later now getting other young girls into the industry. Are they trying to pull some comparisons to this almost seems like they're comparing the modeling industry to the sex trade industry. Like, I mean, is this just a watered down version of that?
It's hard to say. I mean, even the trailer itself doesn't really give us a lot of details about what seems to be going on. I mean, we're introduced to these two characters, but there's not really a whole lot more about, what this film is going to show us. It does seem that there's a seedy side of things that's going on here, but that's just, I got that from reading the plot summary more than anything else. It's not really shown to us in the trailer specifically.
Yeah, there's actually a couple different trailers that I watched for this, and I think the one that I ended up choosing to post is the one that has most of the comments, and it's slightly better in that it has one moment towards the end where the young girl is on the phone with her mom, and she actually is like, I want to go home, please let me go home. So there's this... There is some sign that we're going to see the darker side of the modeling industry, but
we're not. I'm not really clear on what that darker side is. I don't know if it ends up she gets propositioned for sex jobs in order to get gigs, or there's drugs involved, or she's just not making enough money. There is one scene, I think, in the trailer you're going to show where she's at the Japanese airport.
Yeah.
And she's trying to communicate with one of the service girls at the desk, basically saying, I don't speak English, and I'm sure she probably doesn't speak Japanese at all either. So she's, it's an idea that these girls are being taken to a place. They're not really ready for the international stage, and they're not ready to fit within a localized culture themselves either. So it's probably very hard from that aspect.
There's also an interesting moment in there where they, like, one of the I think it's one of the Japanese people, like one of the people like doing the shoot or prepping her or something like that, actually tells her, no, you're 15, not 14. So it almost sounds like there's this aspect of, like, she's supposed to be older and they're getting younger girls and lying about their age and things like that. So taking girls who are definitely, as you said, definitely not prepared for probably the pressure and this completely foreign environment. I can't imagine being... I would imagine, these young girls going into an environment where they have no family, no home, no support system, and trying to just send money back to, all she wants to do is help her own family out back in Siberia.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention the opening shot. I actually was probably the most impressive thing for me in this trailer. It was subtle. It was just a pan, but you start with this sort of scouting room, a bunch of young girls in in underwear, sort of walking around, and people sort of judging them. And it pans over, and as it pans, you get more and more refractions in the mirrors of the room, and it really, I think, sets up the premise nicely of this, body image, models, and sort of the distortion that is going to happen to these girls' lives. And so I think that, like, cinematography-wise, I think that was a very cool thing. But
yeah, it also sets up this feeling, this sort of cattle call feel that anybody who's ever done any acting or auditioned for dancing or any other kind of thing where you're basically, people are rushing through and judging you in 10, 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And pretty much giving you a yes or no based on that very initial first impression. And these girls are... It's interesting because they're all standing around in these very skimpy bikinis, and they're all super thin. And I think one of the opening lines is that their clients, the Japanese, really love skinny girls as models right now.
Right.
Which is, not just a trend in Japan. It seems to have been a trend for a number of years in the modeling industry. And things that came to mind, of course, reality shows like Next Top Model, or even some of these... what's the one with the kids, toddlers and tiaras, right? That's like, but it's all about sort of setting up this beauty image from younger and younger ages. And I was kind of shocked when they introduced the character Nadya, and she said she's 13, because she didn't look 13 to me when they introduced her. She looked like 16, 17, but again,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought she definitely looked young. I mean, that's the thing. There's this ambiguous age look that they're going for, where they're trying to find girls who look timelessly young, just who look. I think it's, I guess, that look of innocence, and that it almost doesn't really matter what age she actually is, because each person's going to imagine how old she is or whatever. But yeah, it's incredibly young, and I have to say, like, this is obviously, I mean, this is a trailer for a documentary, and the point of a documentary is to present a point of view about something and to observe something. And I think some of the best documentaries sort of look at, just sort of present like a couple sides to something and let you come to your own conclusions, but sort of they do their storytelling through how they cut it and the cinematography. So I think this does a good job in one sense to kind of step back a little bit and let you come to your own conclusions, but I think it does a bad job of not giving us enough of their own conclusions, if they are going to have any. And whether it's just going to be sort of like, I have to watch this and witness it. And there's even, they use, I don't know if it's in the trailer that I'm showing, but there's a couple times they reference like quotes that are saying this is, enthralling and disturbing. And, they use a lot of, language saying that this movie is going to disturb you.
Yeah. I don't know. Part of that that aspect is the first thing they kind of throw up is all the film festivals.
Right.
It's going to and being lauded at, and then they throw up those quotes. And to me, that's always a sign of what I like to call festival bait, where it's, you know, they're really trying to push it heavy on the festival circuit. This is not something you're likely going to see in a general release in, you know, all theaters worldwide. But it is something that I'm sure people could, you know, pick up later on video, but it does really seem like it's pushing the festival circuit more than anything, and that's the crowd it's going after.
Yeah, I mean, it is set to release on September 5th, 2012, but it's set for a New York release, which makes sense. Probably a limited release. And you're right. I doubt we'll necessarily see this in any... Well, I mean, how often do we see documentaries do a full run in theaters?
Yeah, not that often.
Unless it's got, you know... unless it's backed by Al Gore or something.
Yeah, Al Gore was exactly what I was thinking.
So, this trailer intrigues me. I wish it gave us a little bit more. Let's take a quick peek at what the trolls are saying. Someone who obviously has probably seen it, because I think it's been making its way around, says great documentary and also pretty disturbing. So kind of regurgitating the little quotes. Let's see. I've
got one here on the YouTube site for the trailer. A bit further down in this, right now it's on the second page. It says, someone please put a contract hit on Ashley, who's the scout, for the good of humanity. So apparently they think she's pretty much a dirtbag human being based on what she does in the film.
Well, there is this aspect to it. Yeah, I mean, there's this part of it where she's like, they don't. I think she says they don't care where I get the girls from. So it's really interesting. Like, she seems a very sad person, and who's almost doing this because she has to. Because I mean, you know, maybe that's just what's left for her. I'm assuming she was a model beforehand. She's very pretty, and what's left for you after that, other than to recruit? You know, that's all that she's come to. So I feel bad for her, but I guess I would reserve judgment until we actually see, you know, until I actually saw the movie, just how they're going to portray her, or how she is portrayed. Rukunro says, this is a real eye-opener. When you think of modeling, you think of glamour, but to send somebody to a different country that does not speak the language and portraying her as 15, it's madness. I would say it's a matter of, is this something that's, you know, is this something that's going to open up our eyes to a much, is it going to, pull, open the rock above the modeling circuit and look at sort of the grimy underside of it?
Well, it's interesting too, because, you know, when you think of some of these models, I mean, a couple names, you know, I mean, of course I'm thinking of the older generation, but, I guess Naomi Campbell, you know, is a name that comes to mind, or Cindy Crawford, you know, some of the old really big supermodels who made it to the top, and sometimes they're portrayed as these divas. You know, they have these huge entourages that go with them from country to country, or they get they have temper tantrums and throw their phones at their handlers or their servants and things. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got, you know, these girls, these up and coming wannabes who can, you know, but they're basically so hungry that they're willing to do anything and go anywhere. And they just, I guess, have to trust people like Ashley that they'll be taken care of. And there's no guarantee that they will be.
Here's an interesting one. I understand entirely about getting stuck in a rut and being scared to try new things, but the work this model scout Ashley does is simply inexcusable, if only for the fact that she said herself that she hated the modeling industry and wanted to get away from it. So then why get a job that keeps the industry conveyor belt going, exploiting children, and generally contributing the misery that's clearly rife in this profession? I think this is one of those, you know, important sort of distinctions, you know, with where we look at the sex trade, and we look at all these things that are, you know, exploitation of people out there in the world, and we look at these extreme situations. but there are so many instances of exploitation in things that seem kind of innocuous and things that are ingrained in our own culture, like the modeling industry. So I think this is, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of interested to see this movie, but I have to say it's taking more effort. Like, I wish the trailer really gave a little bit more to it and was constructed in a way that made me want to see it a little bit more. But
an interesting side note on the comingsoon.net for girl model, the page I'm looking at right now with the synopsis and the trailer. Right at the top in their ad space, they've got an ad for a company, and it's called, and the link is Babe of the Day, and it's got a model there, So just a little bit of kind of weird irony in that page.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, you just look at advertisement, pop-ups on the internet, the bombardment of sexuality of young girls. It's something that we kind of ignore. Like, I've learned to shut it out and ignore it. But I think this is the type of movie that will make you think twice about that. All right, let's final verdict here. Paul, when would you see this movie?
If it was playing in a theater over here, I don't know. We might get it in the film festival next year if it's still on the film festival circuit. But I don't think I'd see it then. I think I'd wait till it's like on iTunes.
Okay.
And get it and rent it. There's enough there to interest me, especially because it's sort of got the cross-cultural aspect, and it looks like a good portion of it's going to take place in Japan. So that really interests me. So I would want to see it. I just don't know if I'd rush out to a festival to watch it in a theater. Yeah,
I'm definitely interested in seeing this, but I would say I would put it on my Netflix queue. This is the type of Netflix does usually a pretty good job of getting documentaries. So I would love to see this sooner rather than later on Netflix. I wouldn't pay to go see this movie. This is not going to be an entertaining movie at all. I think it's going to be a depressing, movie, and I think this is the type of thing that you're going to want to digest and take your time with. So I think it's definitely a watch-at-home type movie. But give it a shot, people, if you're interested in a rather heavy subject matter, but it looks like hopefully eye-opening. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Check out Girl Model, September 5th, 2012, at the limited release in New York. I'm sure it'll take a lot of effort to actually see it in the theater, so if you do, let me know. In the meantime, I'm John Beck, and you can reach me at twitter.com/Copperdome. And Paul, you want to let people know how they can keep up to date with what you're up to?
Yeah, you can catch me on Twitter, twitter.com/Foxlore, on Google+, or if you're interested in Asian cinema at all, head over to Kongcast, that's KONGCAST.com.
And I believe in a couple days we'll be looking at some at least a take on Asian cinema soon, so stay tuned for our episode. Paul's going to hang out with us for a couple more trailers, so we'll see you all soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night.